They mocked him. The aliens looked at the human and saw only scars. They whispered that he was broken, damaged, and fit for war. But they didn't know. They didn't know what gave him those scars. Each one had a story, a memory carved into flesh, not of defeat, but of survival. That burn across his arm, from when he stayed behind to seal a reactor breach, while everyone else ran. The scar on his chest, from a plasma shard he pulled out after saving 3 lives. And that line across his face, a reminder of the day he fought alone against an enemy squad, so his team could escape. He never bragged, never explained. He just smiled when they laughed, because he'd learned that scars aren't weakness. They're proof that pain didn't win. Then came the invasion, a war unlike anything they'd seen. Worlds burning, fleets falling, hope fading. And when the aliens were surrounded, it was him who stood up. The scarred human, the one they mocked, the one they thought was broken. He took command. He walked through fire and chaos like he'd done 1,000 times before. He led them out, not for glory, not for pride, but because saving others was the very thing that made him who he was. When the battle ended and the smoke cleared, they looked at him differently. The laughter was gone, replaced by silence and respect. They no longer saw scars. They saw stories. They saw strength. They saw a human. And they finally understood why Earth breeds warriors of heart and fire. Because humans don't fear pain. They rise from it. And every scar they carry is a victory that refused to die. They mocked him. Every time he walked through the barracks, whispers followed. Look at him, they said. The human, covered in scars. They called him weak, said he was a relic from a primitive world. Too fragile, too soft, too mortal. They didn't understand. They saw the scars, but not the stories. They saw the damage, but not the strength. Because every mark on his skin wasn't a sign of defeat. It was proof he had survived what others never could. That burn on his arm, it came from holding a reactor door shut, bare-handed, to stop a meltdown that would have killed an entire ship. The deep scar across his back, a plasma blade wound, from when he carried an injured comrade through enemy fire, and never once dropped him. That faint line over his left eye, a shard of metal, from the day his ship exploded, and he crawled through flames to drag 3 crewmates out alive. But he never spoke of it. He never boasted. When they laughed, he only smiled. When they mocked, he stayed silent, because he knew something they didn't. Scars are not shame. They are history written in flesh. They are the universe's way of saying, you endured. Then came the war, an invasion so fierce that entire fleets fell within hours. Alien generals panicked. Whole worlds burned. And the ones who mocked him, they were the first to break. But the scarred human, he stood, calm, steady, unshaken. He had seen worse. He had survived worse. He took command when their leaders fell. He walked through smoke and fire with that same quiet resolve. His armor cracked, his body bleeding, but he never stopped. When his battalion was surrounded, he didn't call for retreat. He said only 5 words. Follow me and hold the line. And they did. For the first time, they followed a human, not out of command, but out of faith. He led them through the firestorm. He shielded them with his body. He bled so they could live. And when the battle finally ended, when the last enemy fell, the soldiers looked at him differently. There was no laughter now, only silence and awe. Later, in the quiet aftermath, an alien soldier asked, "Why didn't you run? Why didn't you save yourself?" The human just smiled. Because someone has to stand when everyone else falls. They used to call him scarred. Now they call him commander. Some call him legend. But those who fought beside him, they call him something greater. Human. Because now they know. Humans don't fear pain. They don't fear loss. They carry their pain. Wear it and rise stronger every time. Each scar is not a wound. It's a story, a lesson, a promise. And the scarred human, he became the reason the galaxy will never again mistake mercy for weakness or scars for defeat. They called him hero. They called him legend. But he never saw himself that way. To him, he was just a soldier, a man who refused to die when others needed him to live. After the war, he could have rested. He could have disappeared into peace. Let the galaxy forget. But that wasn't in his nature. Because peace, too, leaves its scars. He walked through cities rebuilt from ashes, watched children play where craters once smoked. The aliens he once saved saluted him with trembling hands, not out of duty, but out of respect. Yet every night, he woke to the same dream, the sound of fire, the smell of smoke, and the faces of those he couldn't save. When the new recruits came, young, untested, full of pride, they stared at his scars like symbols from another age. One asked, "Commander, how did you survive all that?" He smiled softly and said, "I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because someone else needed me to." They trained under him. He taught them what no book could teach: how to keep fighting when fear takes hold, how to stand when your body screams to fall, and how to find hope when the universe turns dark. He told them, scars are not marks of pain. They are lessons, written by fire, sealed by courage, and remembered by those who still walk. But peace never lasts. Years later, another storm began to gather. A new enemy, colder, faster, deadlier than before. They didn't want territory. They wanted extinction. And when the council debated who should lead the defense, every voice spoke one name: the human with the scars. He returned to the front lines, older now, slower maybe, but still burning with that same unstoppable fire. The young soldiers whispered, "Is that really him?" And the veterans answered, "Yes, and if he's here, then we'll make it through." The first strike came without warning. Explosions tore through the sky. Ships fell like rain. The enemy was relentless. But through the chaos, a familiar voice echoed through every comm channel: "Hold the line." Those words, simple, steady, human, became the heartbeat of the resistance. For days, they fought. For nights, they bled. And when their shields fell, he was there, fighting in the dust and ruin, leading by example, scar after scar reopening. But he did not fall. When the enemy fleet finally broke, one dawn rose on the last battlefield. The soldiers stood among the ruins and saw him standing there, motionless, bathed in the morning light. And another replied, "No, he's what we hope to become." He turned then, looked over the survivors, and said quietly, "Remember, these scars aren't mine alone. They belong to every soul who refused to give up." And with that, he walked away, not as a commander, not as a legend, but as a human who carried the galaxy's pain, so that others could carry its future. They mocked the scars once. Now they wear them with pride, because in the end, his story became more than history. It became humanity itself. They said he had earned his rest. They said no one should carry that much pain for that long. But peace never stays silent for a man like him, because legends don't fade, they answer when the stars cry out again. It began with a whisper on the edge of known space. A colony gone. No distress call, no debris, only darkness. The council hesitated, afraid to face another war. But he did not. He simply stood, gathered his old armor, and said the words that sent chills through every command deck. "I'll go see what took them." He took only a small crew volunteers who'd grown up hearing his stories. To them, serving beside him was an honor. To him, it was another burden to protect. As their ship slipped into the void, he looked out at the stars and whispered, "Old friends, looks like we're not done yet." The enemy they found was unlike any before. No fleet, no faces, just living darkness, a force that consumed worlds and memories alike. It didn't kill, it erased. And as it reached toward them, even the bravest soldiers trembled. But the human stepped forward, unarmed and afraid, because for him, fear had burned away long ago, replaced by something far stronger: resolve. He activated the last weapon humanity had built, a sun-core detonator, powerful enough to ignite a new star. It could stop the darkness, but at a cost. His crew pleaded, "Commander, you won't make it out." He smiled. "I never planned to." And then he looked at each of them, one by one, and said softly, "You'll live. You'll tell them why we fought. You'll make sure the galaxy remembers. They escaped just before the light consumed everything." From afar, they watched as a dead system bloomed into fire, and a new sun was born where the darkness once ruled. And in that light, for a heartbeat, they swore they saw him, standing tall, head high, bathed in gold. Then he was gone. Years later, when travelers pass that newborn star, their sensors sometimes pick up a faint signal, a human voice, distorted but unmistakable, whispering through the static, "Hold the line." And every soldier, every species who hears it, stops for a moment and remembers. They remember the scars, the courage, the man who gave everything so others could keep fighting. They mocked him once, then they followed him, and now they build their futures under the light of the star he left behind. Because that star has a name. They call it Sol Reborn, and in its eternal glow, the galaxy learned the truth the hard way. Scars do not end a story, they begin one. Centuries have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. New stars have been born, and old ones have died. But still, his name endures. They call him many things now. The Fire Bearer, the last commander, the human who gave the stars a second dawn. But to those who study the old archives, to those who whisper his story to their children before sleep, he is simply the one who stood. On the world he saved, there is a monument. A single stone carved with no titles, no medals, no rank. Just a human handprint pressed deep into the surface. And beneath it, 4 words. For those who will rise. Every year, soldiers from every species come there. They touch that stone, close their eyes, and feel something. Not magic, not myth, just humanity. The young ones ask, did he really live? Was he truly one of us? And the elders smile. Perhaps, they say, he never died. Perhaps the man became the light itself. Because in the cold of space, where hope burns thin, the light of that newborn star still shines, stronger than ever. And when ships drift too far, when comms fall silent and all seems lost, sometimes, faintly, they hear a voice. It isn't loud. It doesn't shout orders. It just says, stand firm. Hold the line. Across 1,000 worlds, those words became a creed. Cadets whisper it before battle. Healers murmur it over the wounded. Explorers write it on the hulls of their ships. Because it means more than courage. It means endurance. It means never yielding to despair. It means being human, no matter what form your skin takes. One day, long after we are gone, when the last lights of civilization fade, someone will still see that star and know, deep down, that once a single scarred human taught the galaxy what it means to survive. Soft pause. No statue could contain him. No scripture could define him. He was not a god, not a legend carved by myth, just a person who refused to fall. And that, in the end, was enough to light the stars forever. 1,000 years have passed since the star of Sol Reborn first lit the void. Civilizations that once warred now trade. Worlds once drowned in fire now bloom with oceans and green. And yet, the peace feels fragile. There are whispers in the outer sectors. Ships vanishing, suns dimming. Signals that fade into static and cold. Something ancient stirs beyond the edge of known space, something that remembers the taste of fear. The councils meet again, their voices trembling. We are not ready, they say. We are not what we once were. And then, from the deep archives, someone finds an old recording, cracked, distorted, nearly lost to time. A human voice, gravellow, calm, certain. If the stars ever darken again, look to the light I left behind. The galaxy turns its eyes towards Sol reborn. For centuries it has been silent, a quiet, burning monument in the dark. But now, something changes. Sensors flare. Energy readings climb beyond measure. And for the first time in a millennium, the newborn sun pulses once, twice, as if breathing. Pilots on distant routes swear they hear it. A heartbeat through the static. Commanders report seeing silhouettes in the light, figures of fire and steel. And among the whispers, one word spreads: humans. No one knows if it's true. No one dares believe too loudly. But somewhere in the shadows of space, ships older than memory begin to stir. Engines hum with a familiar rhythm. Armor etched with ancient scars catches the newborn dawn. And a voice, the same voice, returns to every channel. We held the line once. We can do it again. Across the stars, hope ignites. Old banners rise. The children of every world lift their eyes to that single, glowing star. And for the first time in ages, they feel unafraid because they remember the stories. They remember him, the scarred human who faced the void and left behind a light that never died. So when the darkness comes again, it will not find a galaxy divided. It will find a galaxy united, standing in the radiance of humanity's return. And in that blinding dawn, as new fleets arise from old embers, a single message will echo through every world, every heart, every soul. Scars do not fade. They lead us home.